Imagine losing everything, the ability to see the beauty of the world around you, and then one day a stranger touches your life in the most unexpected way. What if the impossible could become reality with just a single act of belief? Stay tuned to find out how a simple touch shattered darkness and brought back what was thought to be lost forever. This is a story you don't want to miss once. In a sprawling mansion nestled on a hill where gold chandeliers glittered like stars in the night sky and the scent of expensive perfumes lingered in every corner, there lived a man of immense wealth and power, Mr. Edward Donovan. His name was synonymous with success, and his rise from humble beginnings to becoming a self-made millionaire was the stuff of legends. People across the town spoke in awe of his accomplishments, admiring the grandiosity of his mansion and the luxurious lifestyle he led. His estate was nothing short of a masterpiece, an architectural marvel that boasted gleaming marble floors, velvet drapes, and sweeping staircases that seemed to touch the heavens. Yet, behind the opulence, behind the sweeping lawns and the grandiosity, there lay a dark and painful secret, a secret that no one knew about. A secret that consumed Mr. Donovan's every waking moment. For the past 5 years, Mr. Donovan had been blind, the once vibrant and ambitious man, who had seen the world in all its glory, was now engulfed in a perpetual state of darkness. His sight had been taken away after a tragic accident that left him in a world where light no longer existed. It was a cruel twist of fate, one that not even his immense wealth could reverse. He had consulted the best doctors, visited the most renowned specialists, and even sought alternative treatments, but nothing had worked. His vision remained a distant memory, a ghost that haunted him relentlessly. As the years passed, Mr. Donovan found himself trapped in a world of shadows and sound. His mind, once sharp and filled with plans, became consumed by frustration and anger. He had lost not only his vision, but also his sense of purpose. The once confident and self-assured businessman had now become a bitter and withdrawn man. He could no longer experience the joy of seeing the faces of his loved ones, the beauty of a sunset, or the vibrant colors of his prized art collection. His world was reduced to mere shapes and sounds, and the mansion that had once symbolized success now felt like a gilded cage. Despite the overwhelming despair that surrounded him, Mr. Donovan still clung to the remnants of his former life. He continued to manage his business empire, making decisions by relying on his other senses, but it was no longer the same. The world he once commanded with confidence now felt alien to him. Every day was a struggle, and his frustration only grew as time went on. The only thing that kept him tethered to his former self was the relentless hope that one day, somehow, he would regain his sight. Among the few servants who remained in the mansion was a young black maid named Sarah. She was not like the others. Her presence was quiet, but unmistakably warm. Sarah came from a humble background, hailing from a small village in the southern part of the country. She was a woman of few words, but those who truly observed her would find a softness and grace in her demeanor. She had a way of making even the coldest corners of the mansion feel inviting with her gentle touch and kind heart. However, Sarah's role in the mansion was far from glamorous. As a maid, she was often overlooked, dismissed as just another servant in a house filled with wealth and power. Most people in the mansion paid little attention to her, taking her presence for granted. To them, she was simply part of the background, an invisible figure who quietly went about her duties. They didn't know her story, and they certainly didn't know the extraordinary gift she carried within her. Sarah had a secret, a gift that no one, least of all Mr. Donovan, would have ever suspected. She had an uncanny ability to perceive things beyond the ordinary. It wasn't something she talked about openly, nor was it something that anyone had ever noticed. But Sarah had learned to harness this gift in subtle ways, using it to bring comfort and warmth to those around her. There were whispers in her village about the mystical healing powers of her family, but Sarah never spoke of them. To her, it was simply part of who she was, a part of her that she kept hidden, out of sight. Yet, as fate would have it, Sarah's path would cross with Mr. Donovan's in a way that neither of them could have ever anticipated. The mansion, with its cold, empty halls and its lavish yet hollow decorations, had become a place where both of them, Sarah and Mr. Donovan, were prisoners in their own ways. Mr. Donovan, trapped in darkness, and Sarah trapped in her role as a mere maid, both of them longing for something more but not knowing how to reach it. Despite the difference in their social status, there was a subtle connection between Sarah and Mr. Donovan. She was one of the few people who still treated him with respect and kindness, not out of duty but out of genuine care. And Mr. Donovan, for the first time in years, felt something stir within him when Sarah spoke to him. It was as though her calm presence offered a glimpse of light in the midst of his darkness. Little did he know that in Sarah's quiet humility and in her hidden gift lay the possibility of a miracle, one that would change both their lives forever. The mansion, once a symbol of Mr. Donovan's triumphs, was about to become the setting for an extraordinary event that neither of them could have ever imagined. It was here, in this mansion of both riches and secrets, that the impossible would soon become reality. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the mansion, the air seemed to shimmer with a sense of tranquility. The mansion, which had once echoed with the sounds of laughter and the hustle of servants, now felt quieter than ever. The grandeur of the place only served to amplify the sense of loneliness that enveloped Mr. Donovan. As the evening light filtered through the tall windows, Sarah moved gracefully through the grand hallway, her soft footsteps barely making a sound on the polished marble floors. She was cleaning, as always, her movements purposeful but calm. In the silence, she suddenly heard Mr. Donovan's voice calling her. His words, though faint, carried an urgency that immediately drew her attention. "Sarah!" The voice echoed through the empty corridor, filled with frustration and longing. Without hesitation, Sarah set aside her cleaning supplies and hurried toward the source of the voice. She walked with swift yet measured steps, the large mansion's hallways now familiar to her. She entered his study, the room dimly lit by the last rays of sunlight as they filtered through the window. There, in his favorite leather chair, sat Mr. Donovan. His face was turned toward the window, but his eyes remained unfocused, a blank stare that no longer saw the beauty of the world outside. His posture was slumped, his usual confidence replaced with an air of resignation. "Yes, Mr. Donovan?" Sarah's voice was gentle and respectful, as always, though there was a hint of concern in her tone as she approached him. He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked at her, though his gaze was unfocused, as if he were searching for something just out of reach. "Sarah," he said, his voice thick with frustration, "I don't know why you still work for me. You deserve better than this." His words were heavy, carrying the weight of the years he had spent in darkness. "I can't even see the beauty around me anymore. It's as if the world has shut its doors to me. I've tried everything, every doctor, every treatment. Nothing works. I feel lost, Sarah. Lost in this endless blackness." Sarah could sense the depth of his pain, the hopelessness that had taken root in his heart. She had seen it before, the way his words faltered, the way his once vibrant personality had slowly faded. It pained her to see him like this. She knew the man he used to be, the ambitious, confident businessman who once ruled the world with his vision. Now, he was a shadow of his former self, trapped in a prison of darkness that no one could penetrate. But despite the sorrow in his words, Sarah saw something in his eyes, a flicker of hope that had not yet extinguished. It was subtle, but it was there. She couldn't explain it, but she could feel that there was still a part of him that wanted to believe in the possibility of change. Perhaps that was why she had been so drawn to him from the beginning. He was a man of great strength, and even now, in his darkest moment, that strength was still buried deep within him. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then spoke softly, her voice filled with quiet conviction. "I've heard something that might help," she said, looking into his eyes. Her words were calm, but there was a quiet strength in them that made Mr. Donovan pause. Mr. Donovan raised an eyebrow, skeptical but intrigued. "What could possibly help me now?" he muttered, the bitterness still evident in his voice. Sarah took a deep breath before responding, her words measured and firm. "I know it might sound strange," she began, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. "But it's worth trying. I've heard of a practice, something my grandmother used to speak of. It's a form of healing, one that goes beyond what we can see or touch. She called it the power of belief. If someone truly believes in the power of touch, in the ability to heal with nothing more than the intention to do so, then something impossible can happen." Mr. Donovan's eyes narrowed, and he let out a bitter laugh. "Touch?" he said, his tone mocking. "Are you suggesting that rubbing my eyes will bring back my sight?" He shook his head, clearly amused by the absurdity of the idea, but there was also a trace of desperation in his voice. Sarah didn't flinch. She had anticipated his reaction. "I understand if you think it's foolish," she said, her tone unwavering. "I know how it sounds, but if you trust me, I believe there's a chance." Her words were quiet, but laden with an unshakable conviction that Mr. Donovan could not ignore. She wasn't asking him to believe in something she herself didn't fully understand, but there was a part of her that knew, deep down, that this was the only way forward. Mr. Donovan sat back in his chair, staring at her in silence for a long moment. He was unsure whether to dismiss her words or to entertain the possibility that perhaps, just perhaps, there was something to what she was suggesting. His life had been filled with disappointments, and yet here she was, this quiet, humble maid, offering him something he hadn't even dared to dream about for years, the chance to regain his sight. With a sigh, he leaned back, his gaze still fixed on her. "All right," he said slowly, a mixture of skepticism and curiosity in his voice. "I'll try it, but don't expect miracles." Sarah nodded gently, her heart pounding with a quiet excitement she hadn't felt in years. She had no idea what the outcome would be, but she believed in the power of hope. And in that moment, that belief was enough. Mr. Donovan closed his eyes, as if preparing himself for what was to come. The room was filled with a heavy silence as Sarah stepped closer, her hands trembling slightly as she reached out to touch his eyes. The moment her fingers made contact with his skin, something shifted in the air, a subtle change that neither of them could explain, but both could feel. It was as if the world held its breath. For a moment, nothing happened, but Sarah did not falter. She continued to hold her hands gently over his eyes, her thoughts focused on nothing but the possibility of healing. Whatever the outcome, she had given him a chance he hadn't had in years, and as the minutes passed, the air seemed to thrum with an energy neither of them could explain. Something had begun. Something impossible was about to happen. Sarah gently stepped forward, her movements slow and deliberate, as if every action was carefully considered. Without uttering a single word, she placed her hands lightly on Mr. Donovan's eyes. The touch was soft, barely perceptible, yet it carried a power that seemed to fill the room. There was a quiet stillness in the air, an almost palpable silence that hung between them, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Time seemed to stretch, each second growing longer as they waited together in that intimate silence. Sarah closed her eyes, her fingers resting delicately over his closed eyelids. She focused on the deep belief her grandmother had instilled in her, the belief in the unseen, in the invisible forces that shape the world around us. Her grandmother had often spoken of the power of touch, how it could heal not just the body but the spirit too. Sarah drew on that memory now, letting the energy of that ancient wisdom flow through her, blending with her own quiet confidence. In that moment, she wasn't just touching Mr. Donovan's eyes. She was reaching for something far greater, something intangible but real, the power of hope. For what felt like an eternity, nothing happened. The room remained silent, save for the soft rustle of Sarah's breath and the occasional creak of the old mansion settling around them. Mr. Donovan, despite the faith he had reluctantly placed in her, began to doubt. It was impossible, wasn't it? He had spent years trapped in this darkness, longing for a glimpse of light, and now he was placing his hopes in a mere touch. What if nothing changed? What if Sarah, kind as she was, couldn't give him back what he had lost? The silence grew heavier, almost suffocating, until Mr. Donovan felt a strange sensation. It wasn't pain, nor was it the numbness he had come to accept as his constant companion. It was something alive. A tingling warmth seemed to spread across his eyes, a subtle current that vibrated with a new kind of energy. For the first time in years, it felt as though his eyes were waking up, stirring from their long slumber. It was an unfamiliar feeling, one he couldn't quite place. But it was there. A spark, a flicker of something new. "Sarah?" he whispered, his voice hesitant, uncertain of what he was experiencing. His words seemed to break the silence, but Sarah didn't respond. Instead, she kept her hands gently resting on his eyes, her presence a silent reassurance that she was there with him, guiding him through this moment. Then suddenly the impossible began to happen. A soft glow appeared, faint at first, like the gentle light of dawn creeping over the horizon. It wasn't the harsh brightness of the outside world, but a soft, warm glow that felt welcoming, not blinding. The darkness that had once consumed him slowly began to retreat, revealing the world he had longed to see again. At first, the edges of the room started to form, vague outlines of furniture, the shadowy shapes of objects around him. But then, as if his sight was returning in slow, deliberate steps, the shapes grew clearer. The desk before him took form, the rich wood grain visible beneath the dim light. The chair beside him became more distinct, its plush upholstery shining faintly. And then, the window, the one he had once spent countless hours gazing out of, slowly came into focus, each pane of glass clear and sharp, framing the view of the garden outside. Mr. Donovan's heart skipped a beat. His breath caught in his chest as he realized what was happening. He could see. He could see again. The words tumbled from his lips in disbelief. I can see! His voice trembled with wonder, his heart racing as he looked around the room, taking in the details that had once been lost to him. The world around him was no longer a blur of shadows and noise. It was vibrant, alive with color and detail. Every corner of the room, every piece of furniture, even the smallest object, he could see it all. It was as if he had just awoken from a long, tortured dream, his eyes now filled with the clarity of reality. Tears welled up in his eyes as the full weight of what had happened hit him. The lavishness of the mansion, the intricate details of the paintings on the walls, the twinkling of the chandelier above. It all came rushing back to him, and with it, a flood of emotions. It wasn't just his vision that had returned. It was a renewed sense of life, of possibility. His mind raced with gratitude, disbelief, and a deep, overwhelming sense of awe. He had given up hope, had resigned himself to a life of darkness, and now, here he was, seeing once more. Seeing not just the physical world around him, but the world of hope, of miracles that he had almost forgotten. Sarah stepped back, her hands slowly drifting away from his eyes, a soft smile playing at the corners of her lips. Her face was serene, calm, as though she had known all along that this would happen. She said nothing at first, letting Mr. Donovan experience the moment in silence. But then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she spoke. I knew it would work, she said softly, her words carrying a quiet confidence. Mr. Donovan, still trying to process what had just occurred, turned to her, his heart swelling with emotion. But how? How did you do this? His voice trembled with awe and disbelief. He had seen the impossible unfold before him, but he couldn't understand how it had happened. How had she, this quiet, humble maid, brought him back from the edge of despair? Sarah smiled gently, her eyes filled with a wisdom that seemed far beyond her years. Sometimes when we're lost in darkness, it's someone's belief in us that brings back the light, she said, her voice steady and filled with conviction. The impossible had happened. What Mr. Donovan had once thought was a distant dream, something beyond his reach, had become reality. His sight had returned, not through science, not through medicine, but through something far more powerful. Belief. Sarah's unwavering belief in something greater than herself had made it possible. And in doing so, she had not only changed his life, but had reminded him of the true power of hope. The world would never be the same for Mr. Donovan again. He had seen the impossible, and now he would never take his sight or the people around him for granted. The darkness had given way to light, and he would cherish it forever. If you enjoyed this incredible story of hope and transformation, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Share this video with your friends and family to remind them that sometimes the impossible is just a belief away. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story that could change your life. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.